Now, I want us to talk about the state of the Accra-Tema motorway.
Yeah.
Because, look, there's been lots of promises, and I'm sure many of us will remember the motor contract that was supposed to have started in 2021. The promise, even at the time, by the government spokesperson on infrastructure, that it was going to start by December 2021. That did not happen. Then we came back to say work has begun on the Accra-Tema motorway in January 2024. But nothing is being done today.
And it was in the budget of 2024.
Exactly.
In fact, when you reference it, the parliament was actually ecstatic that this was going to be fixed. And yet, we are not getting the 10 lane, and you're not fixing the original motorway too. So we are almost like, in the middle of that. But Winston, we sat here and had a conversation about whether or not we could be able to raise the almost 600 million, is it $500 million from the source they told us we were going to get the money from. And the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, we went through the things they are doing with the money, whether or not they even have funds available to support it. The government said, no, it's only for the first phase. Then some people had hoped that maybe if it's just for the first phase, they could commence the projects with it. But we are sitting here basically every week. If today is Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
You would hear in the course of the week one accident, one incident, one problem also on the motorway. But we've forgotten that we also made it almost impossible for people to live within Central Accra so that they can work in Central Accra. So many people have to traverse that stretch and come to work every morning. The stress of having to do that is a very big one. And if you have not learned, how many did they say they are counted now? The number of potholes, because it keeps increasing by the day. If you have not learned the number of potholes and how to avoid them, oh, come on. Your car is also in another big trouble. So it compounds it in a way that makes it difficult for anybody waking up and coming on and using that stretch. It's almost like you dread, before your productive hours of the day, you dread a journey that you'll be very, very angry at. A journey that you may not go well, may have difficulty with your car, you may be involved in an accident, and all the negative things that's likely to happen. And for all of these years, just motorway, you forget about the factories you're unable to revive. Just motorway. We have been discussing for more than, for God knows how long.
Let's listen to this report.
Iron rods and the concrete slabs are now visible barely 6 months after the motorway benefited from the 150 million released for patching potholes across the country. The rains came and simply washed away the bitumen, and the potholes have returned. I can imagine a driver telling himself, Eric, slow down, your ties, as he approaches this dangerous spot. Drivers have no option but to slump into the iron rods-ridden potholes. Eric Upon is a victim.
Last week, I blasted out for there, but I didn't see early, so I passed up where the iron rods took the size.
Ride-hailing and taxi drivers like Stephen Ayano now avoid working at night because of the poor condition of the motorway.
There was a time I saw a pothole around and I was like, what is this?
After traveling the entire stretch of the motorway from Accra to Tema and back, we counted a staggering 112 potholes.
Right, so welcome back. That's it. That's the situation. And this one, I want to hear from you. For those of you who use the Accra-Tema motorway. Now, I mean, as a man whose farm is in the voltage, one of the places I dread using is the motorway. And so these days, you find ways and means of using the other side of the road. I mean, the other side. You use Ebri through a Kropong, Latte, and Somanya, and you go.
Yeah, meandering.
Yeah, you don't want to use the motorway because it's a death trap.
It's stressful, and for people who have to do it every day. I mean, really.
See,
enduring this every day is a problem. Now, the Daily Guide is reporting this morning, ministry recruits 15,000.
Daily Graphic.
The Daily Graphic, yeah. Yes, the Daily Graphic is reporting this morning. Ministry recruits 15,200 nurses, midwives, and the process is starting on August 5, Monday. Right, so... Yes, that's a very interesting one. We all have been complaining. I've heard some people complaining that they've gone through school, sometimes being paid allowances to them to train them, and yet we were not recruiting them into the system when other countries needed them. I mean, some of us were even willing to admit that it's not as if we did not need nurses. Let's not get it wrong. Our patient to nurses ratio is not up to the WHO standard. So that particular understanding we should have. We needed nurses, but there were impediments in the way of recruiting nurses. One of them was finance. The other was also where to work and the structures available for them to work. So we had difficulties trying to fix that problem. But this 15,000 is supposed to improve it. But I understand the backlog is huge.
Yeah, Raymond, the WHO is 1 to 1,000. Currently, actually, we have about 1 to 750.
That's what they are reporting.
Yes, that's what the Ministry of Health reports. That we're currently doing well, but we're performing poorly when it comes to doctor to patient ratio. Where instead of 1 to 1,000, we have about 1 to over 4,000. So we have a problem with the patient to doctor to patient ratio. Of course, while we may have exceeded the nurse to patient ratio, the WHO one, we still would need more, because the more would actually help in the improvement of this thing. But I am interested in the timing.
Because it's August.
I am more worried about whether there is the necessary budget allocation.
Exactly,
for
the
it,
budget
you know,
allocation
and
for
for
it.
me, well, fine. If that there is a location for it, then okay, voila. But at a time when revenue, might hit the half-year target, but still there are some concerns. If we have the required budget of funds that have been set aside for this, well, that's okay.
One of our
Especially
biggest-
going into an election season, the concern has been about prudent spending and ensuring that we manage the overruns. And
One
so-
of our biggest sources for funding health in this republic is the NHIL and the other taxes involved
National
in
Health
that.
Insurance Levy,
We hardly deliver to the authority the full amount that goes into the kitty of the National Health Insurance Authority. It will not be strange to actually say that we have devoted a portion of that amount of money to concentrate on training, recruitment of new health professionals. I hope you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yes, and I dispute very much that we are doing way better when it comes to the international standards on what they call it, the population of nurses required. Because take institution to institution, they report to you the massive difficulties they are having with some of these things. But that's not a substantive matter. We can fund it if we truly need them. Alternatively, if we are not in the position, I think there's nothing wrong. It might hurt our pride a little bit, but we've even promoted it before. Facilitate their transition to other countries who will need them now. They will acquire skills. They will probably come back in the nearer future to help train another cohort or share some of the skills with these people. We cannot be static in our thinking about it when, on one hand, we fund their education. We put and give them allowances on top of that, even if you are converting them to whichever institutions that they are supposed to be.
Has Cuba got a similar system like that where they still find a way to export their doctors and then bring them back to help the economy and all that? So for me, I think it's very, very interesting. If you have the required funds set aside for this, yes, there might be issues about timing. Well, every action that any sitting government would take, there will always be political meanings into it.
Yeah, but of
So-
course, the August is, it's close elections and all of that.
And
But
you-
I want
you
to look
expect
beyond that.
more things going
In any
into
case,
the
if they
elections.
recruit 15,200 or so of them this year, they will work for God knows how long, forever, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to only work under an MPP or NDC government. So I am willing to look beyond that. I'm looking at the rationale of having to keep people you have trained home when you knew perfectly that your demand or your rating, you needed them at a point in time. Or we're just not willing to do so because we have made similar arguments about the teachers we train who end up in the house. Then later on, we have a scheme for getting some of them on board. Anyway, but that's not the only big story on the front page of the Daily Graphic. The other one is mid-year budget silent on long-term reforms. That's what PwC is saying. Yeah, but I think, we have a medium-term budgetary framework, right?
Yeah.
I also get the point they are making about this, but sometimes I think when people realize that you cannot really do the kind of reforms that you need or require.
Very rigid budget.
Yeah, so
And
you
if
just have to avoid it and create the impression that, oh, let's move on with our lives.
And if you go through that report by PricewaterhouseCoopers, it raises a very, very critical question that these signs of economic recovery that we are experiencing can be directly linked to the IMF program. So when we exit this program, we still carry out the necessary restraints and all the rest, and that's a big concern for Pricewaterhouse going forward in terms of that, what will happen to the economy after an IMF program.
It was Dr. Komna Dufour who told me that there was a time the late President Mills said they should extend the stay of the IMF because it appears that under the IMF we are more disciplined, and if we can't get our people to be disciplined beyond 2011 there, we should extend their stay. Let them comfortably be with us. And that there's no need to move on quickly. And
the former chair of the finance committee has also had that strong, that if he becomes a finance minister, he will sign an agreement where we will always be under a fund program.
But why do you always want to be under a fund program?
Because we can raise the independence tag, and we are whatever distant country, we don't need and all the rest, but numbers do not lie. Some will raise concerns about the harsh fiscal consolidation program that we undertake and whether it has a human face and what happens to those people down there. But the numbers will always show that the economy does better when we are under a fund program than when we are not in a fund program.
Well, Raymond, the Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. Stephen Amoah, sends a message. He says, "Good morning. I am listening." Why? Why?
Oh, I am only saying that.
Dog.
I know the word. I like the word. It appears some MPs do not know the word. So it is only proper and congruous that it becomes the next education we give the people of this republic.
Okay.
Hopefully his colleagues may benefit from it.
Oh, you're also a teenager. Anyway, let's move to other stories.
Anyway, let me end there. Jackpot's actions constituted misconduct. That's on the front page of the Daily Graphic too, before you move on.
The new finder, we have lithium fiscal regime advantageous, but potential risk could impact expected revenues coming from think tank. There also, President Akufo-Addo commissions a 60 million phase 2 expansion project with the US University. Did the conferment come on the...
Yes, he had
it. Finally it came on. Okay,
but I mean, like I have indicated, the whole controversy about an honorary doctorate degree doesn't really put food on your table.
Doctor.
The conversation today.
Yeah, but we even gave what they call it, Matthew Opoku-Prempeh.
Yeah.
A doctorate degree from UCC, right?
Yeah.
As education minister. Yeah. But Opoku-Prempeh acted under Akufo-Addo.
Yeah.
So having a sitting president also receiving, you can question other things you do not believe he has done right, which is perfectly good. But I don't know when we started becoming so. I thought the rule had been if the person is a military dictator, the person is. See, one of those criteria one would understand. But and again, to the extent that you say, "Oh, I've invoked cases," but this is 21st
But
century.
my problem really is that look, if if you are Akufo-Addo, and at this point people are talking about honorary doctorate degree, you will be happy because it actually saves you of all the economic problems we're going through.
Yes.
And I say it's time to focus on the economic problems. Look, Kweku Kwating has made a fantastic point that all of us today must recognize there's a problem. And all of us must get to the table and decide that this is how we want to go. The admission alone, for me, is the best you would get from somebody who's close to government, who is in government. Absolutely. We're talking about nursing and midwives, nurses and midwives. What is the fiscal impact of this? We must know the analysis they've done. Going forward. So we're employing 15,000 people. How's that going to impact us going forward? It's not just saying we're going to employ 15,000 people. We have started the process and that's the end of it.
Let me still continue with the new finder. There's another interesting story on the front page, Raymond, for those who are making some payments in pound sterling. And it's true, cedi strengthens against the pound sterling. We've seen some interesting developments happen, even though it was still struggling to find its feet against the the dollar, it's making some gains when it comes to the British pound. So the Ghanaian cedi exhibited mixed performance last week, strengthening against the pound sterling, whilst weakening against both the US dollar and the euro. So you realize there was somewhere around 2016, 2020. It's come down actually to 20 now, and I don't know what is happening.
Today we checked that it's going to 2022. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
so in
22 to $1.
No, that is
No,
20
pound.
cities.
to the pounds.
Yeah, to the pound, yeah. So from around 20 cities, 22 pesos is now scaling down.
It's not 22 pesos again.
The governor is making some interesting developments during the NPC, where he was raising concerns about, even though the rate of depreciation has slowed, sentiment and issues about the elections, the uncertainty and all the rest is driving that depreciation. And for anybody who is managing the monetary space, he thinks that it is quite a difficult situation in dealing with that challenge.
Look,
Yeah, but this is not the first time we've had elections.
this is not the first time. And this is not the first time. We actually, you see, today, people just don't see the dollar as a currency needed for imports. They see the dollar as an investment tool.
Yeah.
So once the dollar becomes an investment tool, and I was having a conversation with somebody who said, Masa, if you have dollars, keep it. It will never come down. But you see, as you try to encourage him to put his dollar within the system, he tells you so that somebody will go and keep it. I'd rather keep it myself.
I think that this thing about dollarization, a lot of experts have said it, that, the biggest antidote to this is about stabilizing the local currency. You can put in place all the policies, but if your local currency is not strong, any rational human being would actually find a way to hedge against inflation. So yes, we could put in place all the laws and everything, but the biggest challenge is that everything must be done to stabilize the local currency. When your local currency is strong, nobody will be forced to price in dollars when the local currency itself is strong.
What I'm thinking about is that those who are going to school in the UK in September, they have to look for almost 4 times the amount of money some of us look for. Maybe 12 times Winston's time. 60s, yeah, it's different, Yes, but I mean, that to me is a problematic trend. That almost 4 times the amount of money that some of us got. That's just 2020 anyway. Now, the Ghanaian Times is also reporting biggest nursing midwifery school opens as president receives honorary doctorates degree, second phase of US project, biggest nursing project in the entire country. Now, we've not paid $10 million to SGAG, that's the Bank of Ghana. They say they've established letters of credit for SGAG. They have not made payments, or there's not been demands on these letters of credit. That's what they are saying. And this is sources the Ghanaian Times is quoting from the Bank of Ghana.